Hello everyone, and welcome to our virtual open day presentation on degrees in foreign languages. My name is Paul Joyce. I am the current course leader on BA Modern Languages. I'm also the Modern Foreign Language Coordinator, and I'm going to be telling you about both of our degree programs, BA Applied Languages and BA Modern Languages. I'm going to be explaining the sorts of things that you can do on the degree, the options and pathways that you have. I'm going to explain a little bit about the facilities that we have here at the university, about our year abroad and the many and different things that you can do on this year abroad, and to start to explain some of the different career pathways that our graduates then choose. The building that you can see on that picture is Park Building. Unfortunately, we're unable to be in Park Building today because of the coronavirus situation. But as you can see, it's a lovely old building with 4 different floors of rooms. And I'll show you some of the facilities that are available in Park Building as we go along. So our core values on Portsmouth language degrees: flexibility. From your second year onwards, you choose options and pathways that shape your degree in the way in which you would like it to go. And also, it shapes your degree to follow the things that you are interested in and passionate about. We have, for example, a final year research project, and that is written on any subject area that is language related that interests you the most. It could be translation, it could be subtitling, it could be the way in which languages are taught, it could be the way in which languages are learned, it could be anything to do with the history and culture of a language that you are learning. So it's really flexible according to the way in which you would like your degree to progress. We engage students, as I'm about to show you, using innovative teaching supported by research. We offer you a year abroad, and if you're studying 2 languages, then it'll be a year abroad that will be split in 2 different locations, where you will live in a country where you'll be immersed in the language that you are learning. And we have great pastoral and academic support to help you to manage the transition between school and university. This next slide shows what our ethos behind language learning is. And by language learning, we mean all of the modules in which your language is either learned directly or in an applied sense. We mean translation or interpreting or language project or language for professional communication, which is business language. And we believe that we are innovative. We use a variety of online methods to help support our teaching, whether it's podcasts or blogs or vlogs, which means that despite the challenges that the current coronavirus situation has placed us under, we are comfortable enough with online learning to be able to make this transition quite easily. Our teaching is also based on language in use. It is focused on real life linguistic situations. Take, for example, our first year module, which is called the Language Project, which is taken by students in their post-A-level language. Right from the beginning, we split you into pairs and you become news journalists in the foreign language. You research a story on a subject area that interests you, and then we place you in a TV studio in your pairs, and you do a report to camera based on the area that you have researched. It's just like a TV studio, with one difference: there is no auto cue, which means that you are going to have to be fluent in the language and fluent in presenting in order to put across your report in a convincing way. Why do we do this? Well, because employers like to see people who are comfortable speaking the language, comfortable in presenting to a group of people, whether it's in a company or on an individual basis. And also, it gives you a video recording that you can show to an employer and also to your family and your friends to show how competent you are speaking and presenting in the target language. And the third of our key priorities is employability. We discuss all the time with local and national employers what it is that they'd like to see from a language graduate, and we modify our courses accordingly. Take, for example, a final year module we have that is called Translation Theory and Practice. And we spoke to local translation companies and asked their opinions. And they said there's a misapprehension that the first job that you get when you enter the translation profession, having graduated, is that you're going to set up on your own and be a translator. It takes a little bit of time to become a freelance translator, to build up not only the confidence, but also to build up the contacts. So the first job that you're going to get is possibly working as a project manager or as a proofreader in a translation company. And we took this advice on board, and in the Translation Theory and Practice module, we therefore set up an assessment where students formed their own mini companies of 3 to 4 people. And within the mini company, somebody acted as a project manager, i.e. preparing the estimate of how much a translation would cost and preparing the invoices. Somebody was lead translator, somebody was second translator, somebody was proofreader. And we then gave them 2 texts to translate. One, say, from French into English, another from English into French. And the company as a whole was responsible for producing the product and submitting it in a professional manner. And by doing this, students learned an awful lot, not only about teamwork, but about how the translation profession worked as a whole. And this helped students, and quite a few have gone on, immediately having done that module, to gain placements with translation companies. It enables students to show future employers in the translation field that they're aware of what work in translation for translation companies is all about. Let me tell you a little bit more now about our 2 language courses. One is BA Modern Languages and one is BA Applied Languages. You'll see from this slide that there is an awful lot that both of these degree courses have in common. So on both of them, you can do translation and interpreting. On both of them, you can do the MFL with ITT pathway, which I'm going to explain, and that enables you at the end of the degree to be qualified to be a foreign languages teacher in an English and Welsh secondary school. On both degree programs, you can do a work placement in Portsmouth or here and around Hampshire and have that accredited as part of your degree. And both degree courses ask you to go on a year abroad and have lots of fascinating experiences, either at a university or as a work placement or teaching. And they also enable you to take a further language, both degree courses, via our institution-wide language program, or IWLP, which is available to all students in the university. Let me focus on what the differences are between the 2 courses. And the differences are, firstly, in the range of languages that you can take on both, and the number of languages too. For BA Applied Languages, on the right-hand side of your screen, you need to study 2 languages, one of which must be at post-A level. The second language can be as a beginner, or it can be post-A level as well. On BA Applied Languages, you can have language combinations of 2 from French, German, Spanish, Italian Mandarin, and EFL, which is English as a foreign language, i.e. you can't study English on BA Applied Languages if English is your native language. The BA Modern Languages, however, you can either study with 2 languages or with 1 language. If you study it with 2 languages, then you need an A level in either French, German, and Spanish. And you can then take a second language in French, German, Spanish, Italian, and Mandarin, i.e. English is not possible on that degree. You can, however, study BA Modern Languages in 1 language. And if you do that, your 1 language can either be post-A-level or as a beginner. And we've opened this degree program up to people who, for no fault of their own, may not have been able to study a language at schools or colleges, but it's a language that you're absolutely passionate about. And the second difference between the two degree courses is the focus of the additional modules that you take alongside the modern foreign language modules that I've previously described. So on BA Modern Languages, the focus is on languages and culture. And it is based on the understanding, again, entering the world of work, whether it is business or teaching or translating or whatever, that you cannot be an effective worker if you don't understand the culture in which your language is based. So on BA Modern Languages, we teach you about the history and the literature and the film, all of the cultural elements of a language. Our first year module, Nation, Language and Identity, examines how language usage affects not only nationhood, but on the many identities that we have in the modern world. BA Applied Languages, on the other hand, focuses on the languages and their application, i.e. languages plus linguistics, the study, for example, of how we learn languages and how we teach languages, but also the way in which different languages are used across cultures in modules such as managing across cultures. Common elements on both degree courses include the IWLP, Institution-Wide Language Program module that I mentioned earlier. Now, this is really powerful for students on language degrees because it means that if you're already studying 2 languages on your degree, you can pick up a third. And you can pick it up either as a complete beginner, or if you've got previous knowledge of the language, you can start it again at the level that you had previously attained. And we offer the institution-wide language program in 8 different languages. In our 5 core languages, namely French, German, Italian, Mandarin, Chinese, and Spanish, but at beginners levels and post-beginners levels, also in Arabic, Japanese, and the very popular British Sign Language, which is used by 250,000 people in the United Kingdom alone. So many of our students choose to do this either for credits, which means it forms part of the elements of your degree, or for interest, i.e. as something additional, because you get a certificate of attainment at the end of it using the European Union Common European Reference Scale, such that employers can see that the level that you have reached. Here are 2 other elements that you can build in as part of your degree. The Trinity College London certificate in TESOL is available on BA Applied Languages only because it is something that is related to the English language. And this is a qualification that students take if they can see themselves teaching English to speakers of other languages. And it is an accredited and recognized qualification that enables students to teach in language schools worldwide. And students have used the qualification on graduation to teach all over the world. We've put a few places where they teach: Dubai, China, Spain, Kazakhstan, Germany, but there are many, many more. It's very popular among students. The first thing that they do after graduating is to use their TESOL certificate to travel the world and teach English to other people. So in order to be accepted, you need to pass a module called Language Learning and Teaching Satisfactorily. There is also a selection interview and a test of competence, because this is obviously a very popular option. The module on the right is the LIFE unit, and LIFE is short for Learning from Experience. And this is something I touched on earlier that enables you to use your work experience as part of your degree. which means that you can do a work placement, which many students choose to do for financial reasons anyway. And by writing a report on your life experience, you can have that as part of your degree. Now, this can either be paid work or it could be voluntary work. And the reason why we do this is that it gives you the work experience that is possible for you to stand out on your CV when you're applying for jobs after graduation. Again, both of these are options. You don't have to do them if you don't want to. You put together your degree in your second year in the way in which you would like your degree to look. The further element that applies to both degree programs, and what we're very excited about, is our MFL with Initial Teacher Training program. University of Portsmouth is one of very few institutions in England and Wales that has been selected by the Department for Education to deliver a program of language and teacher training that means that at the end of your 4-year degree, you are qualified to teach your modern foreign languages in a secondary school in England and Wales. The end of most languages degrees, you would then have to do a postgraduate certificate in education, a PGCE, for an additional year before you would be able to become a language teacher. This builds it into your degree. Means in practice that from your second year onwards, you would be given theoretical training by our excellent School of Education, but also would be doing work placements in local schools where you would be observing the work of local language teachers and helping to participate in their classes. You would then, in your year abroad, do something teaching related as an activity on your year abroad, and on your return in your final year, you'd be spending 2 days a week in a local school, practicing your teaching skills in the classroom. I'm sure you've noticed what's on the bottom of this slide, that on successful completion of your MFL with ITT qualification, you're entitled to a bursary of £9,000 in your final year. This is because the Department for Education is committed to finding well-trained and well-motivated language teachers for secondary schools and has selected us at the University of Portsmouth as a reliable partner to help them deliver this. And £9,000 isn't something to be turned down. Let's come on now to the year abroad. And here are pictures of just some of the places that our students have gone on their year abroad. So you will see that, say, if, for example, you study French, we don't just limit the places that you can go on your year abroad to France itself. We have excellent links with Senegal, and many of our students go to partner institutions in Dakar in Senegal. And likewise, although you'll see on the bottom left, the very popular University of Granada, where many of our students go as part of their year abroad and send us postcards saying what a lovely time they're having with such great weather. But you can also choose to go to Latin America if you would like. Students have gone to Central America. Where are you passionate about seeing and visiting? Where are your studies indicating that is the most stimulating and interesting areas to go? And our university is all about going global. We have 3 different options. You can either study, work, or teach abroad. The first option, studying abroad, would mean that you would do an exchange with one of our partner universities in a French-speaking, Spanish-speaking, Italian-speaking, Chinese-speaking, German-speaking country. And this means that you would be attending not only language modules, but also cultural modules attended by French students, Spanish students, etc., and be completely immersed in student life in that different culture and in that different language. The second thing that you can do is that you can find a work placement abroad, And once we have approved that work placement and found out that you are not being exploited, that there is accommodation available, etc., you can use that approved work placement as your year abroad activity. You can also teach abroad. We take part in the British Council Assistantship Scheme, which means that you could teach English as a foreign language in the culture of your choosing. Be the native speaker expert in the classroom. If you're doing two languages, you would split your year abroad into two different countries, spending a minimum of 15 to 17 weeks in each of the two countries whose languages that you are studying. It's not just a year out, as it says in the third bubble. Obviously, we expect you to enjoy yourself and to have challenging experiences, but you're also learning your language. It's the time, particularly if you're learning a language as a beginner, where your language makes the biggest leaps in terms of what it is that you're doing. Your fluency, your confidence, particularly in speaking and listening, really grows, but you need to work at it while you're there. You need to keep noting new vocabulary, learning new vocabulary, trying new things, making as many friends and contacts as you can to practice your language. But you're also researching your final year research project. So some students, for example, have gone to a place and done their final year research project on the dialect that is spoken in that area. Some people have been teachers, say in Spanish schools, and have done their 5,000 word research project on the difference between foreign language teaching in a Spanish school and in a British school, or even between teaching in a Spanish school and a French school, if those are the two countries where their teaching has taken them to. And we offer you support all the way through. We don't just send you away and leave you to get on with it. Your personal tutor will still be in contact with you. Your year abroad tutor will have tutorials with you to make sure that everything is okay. We keep in contact and make sure that everything is going well. Examples of where people have gone on their work placements, well, they're many and varied. On the British Council Assistantship, students have travelled all over the world. So France, Belgium, Germany, Austria, Spain, you would expect, but look too at Ecuador, Colombia, Argentina, Mexico, Chile, even students going to Quebec, the French-speaking part of Canada. We've had people be translators, we've had people do subtitling, activity leaders, administration, anything where we think that you can use your language immersed in the work environment and that it will develop you career-wise. And there are three examples that we have chosen here that show this better than any others. Our first one is Lucy Batushkova. And Lucy went to, via the Otra Cosa project, she went to Peru. And she was in a place which she described herself as being off the beaten track, a very, very small village that many people in Peru, most people in Peru, wouldn't have visited either. And not only did she develop her language skills, because everybody there spoke Spanish and very few people spoke other languages, but she became immersed in the middle of this very distant culture. And everything that happened in the village, she was a part of. And being a volunteer teacher in the village meant that she was involved in the setup and organisation of village life. And the skills that she describes that it gave her, patience, flexibility, resourcefulness, independence, are the skills that employers really look at. And if you can put down on your CV that you've done an experience such as this, you are showing to an employer that you can survive in difficult environments, that you can contribute to life in a very, very different culture. And it shows them that you are resilient and practical enough for any job that they could offer you. Paul Wheatley's comment, he went to Senegal, and he found how much his language improved, his French improved hugely, but also he learned quite a lot about professional relations and how different cultures deal with the world of work in very, very different ways. And Connor, who did a British council assistantship in Montélimar in France, found that it was an invaluable experience to find about how teaching is undertaken in a different country, and it helped him grow professionally and to help him become more aware of himself as a teacher for when he entered the teaching profession. But these are just 3 different experiences that our students had. We could have chosen many, many more. No 2 students have the same year abroad experiences. And one of our students, Abigail Nobes, even managed to turn her year abroad into the start of a writing and publishing career. She spent the first half of her year abroad on a work placement in Spain. She spent the second half of her year abroad studying at a French university. And as the year went on, she was noting the experiences that happened to her and the things that she had to learn, whether it was paperwork or cultural differences or whatever. And when she returned, she wrote a book about it and she published it. And we're delighted to say that early last year she had her book launch, Brit Abroad, How to Survive a Year Abroad. And it gives people, precisely people who are students who are going on their year abroad as part of their degree, advice as to what to expect and the types of things that you should do in order to help you settle down in your year abroad. So, for example, do people really kiss each other on the cheek when they greet each other in Europe? As she found out in France, yes, they do. And it depends on what part of France you're in as to the number of times in which they do it. The Global Cafe is something that we offer here in the School of Languages and Applied Linguistics as a means of helping our students on languages degrees and the exchange students who come here from other universities, not only to get to know each other, but to practice their languages. And the Global Cafe meets normally on a Wednesday afternoon in term time. And as you can see, it's where people from all manner of different backgrounds get together to learn about each other's cultures, but also to practice languages. So you can set up a language partnership either within the Global Cafe or outside, where, say, somebody who's come across from Chile would like to learn English, and you would like to use your partnership with them to learn Spanish. So you find a way of exchanging your 2 languages and help to support each other. So these are normally themed events. They're very often themed about food, unsurprisingly, hence the topic Global Cafe. But it's a really, really good way of getting to know people from different backgrounds and also speaking to native speakers outside of the classroom. We have here in Portsmouth excellent facilities, and it's a real shame that we can't show you around Park Building today so that you can see them in person. On the left of the screen, you'll see that we are one of only 2 universities in the country to have a fully equipped interpreter training suite. And as you'll see from these pictures, it's made up of 2 component elements. The big desk is to help you to prepare for interpreting in scenarios where, say, you may have company representatives come over from Spain and they only speak Spanish. And you're working from a British company, and the British company, being British, has people who only speak English. For that dialogue, for that negotiation to work, they are going to have to rely on you as the interpreter to communicate what each side wants. It's not just getting the message across, but it's also getting the right tone, the right degree of politeness, the right degree of respect, the right degree of enthusiasm. And you'll see that on that desk, we've got not only a central computer screen, but everybody has a microphone. And there are cameras in those microphones as well, such that we can, there is a central little button in the middle with a camera, which means that we can record your performance so that you can see not only the words that you've spoken, but also the body language that you give off while you're interpreting, because that's really important. Around the table, you will see that we have a total of 7 booths, and there is a student in the top picture, rather ghostly presence, a student in the booth as well. And these booths are to help you practice conference interpreting. And conference interpreting, you may have seen at the United Nations or the European Union, when somebody is giving a speech, that the people in the room are listening on headphones to the speech. Why they're listening on headphones? Because somebody high up in the building is going to be interpreting for them. The speech is being given in real time, and the interpreter is translating it, say, from French into English or from French into Italian, such that all of the delegates at the conference can listen. And you need booths for that. You isolate you put headphones on so that you can just focus on what's being spoken. It's a very demanding activity, and it's one that we concentrate on in our final year because it's after your year abroad. But it's really exciting to do, and it's one that all of our students enjoy. Other facilities include our language labs. We have language labs at which you can practice speaking and listening. And a lot of our teaching takes place in these language laboratories, not only in our pure language teaching, but also in translation, because the modern translator is making use of lots of translation software to help them in their work as they go along. We also have, top right, the Learning Resources Centre, and our Learning Resources Centre in Park Building has a whole host of DVDs, of additional language learning materials and books, and it's also a great place to work if you just want to practice your language skills. I mentioned at the beginning that we are gold rated not only because of our teaching, but because of the excellent pastoral care and academic support that we offer. And this starts off with our teaching personnel. And it's worth pointing out that all of our academics are researchers and teachers as well. So we don't have researchers who you never see. All of us are available for teaching, and we are also available to be personal tutors. So right from when you arrive at the university, you are allocated a personal tutor, and a personal tutor is there to answer any questions that you may have, maybe about settling into the university and learning about all the abbreviations and all the different things that we ask you to do. Could be any queries you have about your accommodation or about finance. And throughout all years of your degree, you will have a personal tutor who you can turn to, either in our allocated office hours or just drop us an email and we can answer your query. We also have SLAL learning development tutors. And learning development tutors can help you in the preparation of your work, or you may be given feedback on an assessment that you've completed that says you need to look at the structure of your essay, or you need to look at how you put together references or how to put together bibliography. And you can take this feedback to our learning development team, either on a drop-in session or creating an individual appointment, and they can help you with this. They also offer academic workshops on areas that prove particularly demanded by students. The most popular academic workshop was on procrastination, or putting things off, which is an issue that many students find that they do. And gloriously, they had to run the workshop on procrastination twice because students put off visiting the workshop the first time, so they had to run it a second time. I'm not going to comment on that at all. And right at the bottom, you'll see that there is university level support as well. So we have an excellent student wellbeing service to help you with any issues that may arise that are beyond your control throughout the academic year. And ASDAC also ensures that anyone who needs extra support with their learning, whether you have dyslexia, dyspraxia, or need extra time for examinations or whatever, ASDAC liaises with us to ensure that you get the precise support that you need. I've mentioned that employers value linguists. We talk via our placement and internships centre, but also at our regular meetings with employers to find out exactly what they think about linguists, and the message is a consistent one. We want language graduates. Why? Message number one, English is important, but it's not enough. And why do they say it's not enough? Because it's all about building up a relationship. And you can build up a relationship with overseas partners if you speak their language. Networking is easier in the local language. If you speak English, you can make yourself understood. But are you going to find out those valuable pieces of information build up those valuable contacts if you speak English. No, you're not. And what is also important, they say about linguists, is that linguists can communicate in any language. They're really good communicators, but listening is a skill. You don't just learn to speak a language, you learn to listen in the language and to respond. So the consistent message we get from employers is that we want language graduates, and we want language graduates who are comfortable speaking and listening the language in the work environment, which is why, as we've shown you, we create so many modules and assessments that give you practical problems to solve. Where do our graduates go? Well, they go into a whole host of different professions. Sure, some of them go into teaching because we set up a pathway for that. So Catherine Fox has become an English foreign language as a foreign language teacher, whereas Philippa Joyner is a head of foreign languages in a local school. And some people go into translation. So Harriet is a translation project manager, and many of our graduates have gone on to become translators. But it's intriguing to see some of the professions that our students go into that we wouldn't have expected. Take, for example, Will Brooks Smith, and you'll see fraud investigator. To give him his full title, he is a multilingual fraud investigator and one of the biggest online sales providers, probably the biggest, decided that they needed linguists to help them investigate fraud in some of the sellers who use their online service. And they needed to find out if a transaction went wrong, i.e. wasn't completed to the customer's satisfaction, whether it was because of fraud or whether perhaps there had been a breakdown in communication between languages. And after Will, another one of our students went on to work for them as well. 2 or 3 years ago, if you'd have asked us, we wouldn't have believed that this profession existed. But whenever the jobs and careers situation changes and new careers are invented, linguists are always at the forefront because we always need people who can communicate. And it's fascinating to see the different directions in which all our alumni go. And just if you notice the picture at the bottom right of that screen, that is another view of our home park building. And you can see from this aerial shot what a lovely old building it is, with 2 wings. And there's the big staircase that you saw earlier. Teaching is done mainly on the 1st, 2nd and 3rd floors, with academics living in the offices up at the top. Obviously, the information that we're giving you at the moment is accurate at the time of the event. It's possible that some course details may change over time. As you're aware, the coronavirus situation is requiring changes of all university. But as of this moment in time, the information is accurate. So I've given you a lot of information on this, but I'd be really happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I've put my email address, paul.joyce@port.ac.uk at the bottom of this. Please feel free to email me with any queries that you may have. We also have a Twitter account for the School of Languages and Applied Linguistics at UOP SLAL. And you'll also find that many of our individual languages have their own Twitter account. I'm responsible, for example, for the German @Pompey Twitter account, and French @Pompey is also there as well. So please follow what we do, learn a little bit more about what we do, and yeah, please feel free to email me with any questions that you may have about the 2 degree programs, about the year abroad, about what you can do on each of the degree courses. There's a lot of information to take in, but this is because there's an awful lot of opportunities because of the way in which we've structured your degree, our degrees. So I'd like to thank you for watching our video and for your interest in the University of Portsmouth. Again, really sorry that we couldn't welcome you to Park Building itself, but we do look forward to welcoming you at Park Building very, very soon. Thank you very much.